but as a visual to try to see,
Yeah.
well,
See where the concentrations are.
yeah, concentrations are. And then the orange are either current or future commercial clusters, even including that little gas station down there on Pleasant Ridge Road. And, you know, I don't want people like on Hamburg Mill and some of these other roads to feel left out, like you guys on Scalesville. Obviously there are a lot of homes along there, but they're not really tightly clustered.
No. What's the fuchsia color?
So the fuchsia color are either developments in progress or land that is like under permit, like right up there on Strader Road on the east side. There's the new development going in there, and then a whole field worth of plots that are for sale, and then a large single landowner that I'm guessing maybe headed for development. The big fuchsia over in that Strawberry 150 Lake Brant quadrangle there. That's all one single guy. That's Miller. Yeah, and then I think that's Lake Brant Farm up there, the upper fuchsia, and then Summerfield Farm down there. So trying to put that in the context of, well, if there are going to be a lot of people there, then, you know, can we make sure that we're saying that we want to be able to connect those people to the nodes and that sort of thing. So then the next thing I did was I actually started with the road collectors, which are in orange. Now, bear in mind, I'm not saying that you know 150 is the ideal place to have a bike route because it's going to be so busy. But our prerogative from the comp plan is to try to identify all those collectors and see how they fit into the plan. So I did include those. The purple, you see one going up at an angle like that, and then there's one over in the far northwest corner, and then there's one down that comes across Lake Higgins. Those are all the utility, major utility lines that I could find. There might be more, but I just identified those because it is part of the comp plan to identify them and look at those as a potential backbone for the trail plan.
What color are those?
Which ones?
The utility line.
We don't have any colorblind folks.
I can see a red and green, but I can see basically the
pointer. So this is a utility line, and you know I don't want people to get the impression that we're just going to run a trail right through there because there are private properties on those.
Yeah.
So it still is a matter of asking for easements and you know asking for permission to go through. So then right up. Is there a pointer?
Up there at Lake Brant and Strawberry Road, that's where the power line comes through.
Yeah, so that's the major power line that goes across right there. It starts there, Martin.
Yeah.
And that's where the golf course is on Lake Brant, just above the fire station.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's serious.
No,
So
don't get anyone.
this is a broad swath of an easement. It's those big high tension power lines. Maybe not ideal for a trail under there, but
Actually, it's wonderful.
yeah, it's
It runs down,
big and
we've got it going through the middle of the farm.
yeah, and there are no houses under it that I can see.
You can't build structures.
Right. So it might be a nice, useful connector. It does go right through Summerbrook Acres right there. And if you remember from the other image, so the golf course is right there, and this is, there are some private homes sort of in this space here, but the big open field, lots of forested land here, but obviously a commercial node right there. And the dentist office, I forgot, this on my other map, but there's the medical center there. And so it makes sense to try to pull these communities
But then, have you got it going across Scalesville Road?
Up here,
Goes across Scalesville Road and goes over to 220?
yeah, it looked like it kind of bent in Windspray, sort of in the middle of their development, and sort of tipped down that way more.
And
Heads
comes
over
out
across
right
you
close
guys.
to the, yeah, it comes across.
Right.
Comes out right close to the athletic field, I think.
Uh,
Not terrible.
that may be a different one. I'd have to look at the
Well,
map
it's,
again.
no, it doesn't, it's down Blue Robinson.
I tried to use more professional level planning tools, and I wasted a whole bunch of time in ArcGIS and QGIS, and I ended up just looking at Google Maps for the big swath of missing forest to try to draw those out. Maybe the next phase of this is we have someone who knows what they're doing.
What are the orange dots?
So the orange dots are the major collector roads. And so, like I said, not necessarily the ideal for trails, but there may be segments where it'd be really useful to have like a side greenway on a portion of something. If there's a really high density of people there that we can get them to a valuable location, then that could be great. But there are other examples like for Hillsdale, so the back of us, Tim, well, not really us, but Lockmere, there could be potential to connect this neighborhood, you know, Polo Trails, Polo Farms, and even these guys from the other side to be able to get to the back of Hillsdale with some landowner permission, but the land is still open, so, you know, if people are willing, and I know, you know, there's a potential for people to go and have ice cream or go to the restaurants there. You know, you're probably not going to go get a bunch of manure or something and big plants on your bike, but so that's what the purple is. The blue is, again, going back to the comp plan, is identifying watersheds and trying to see if they're viable for trails. So I called them out.
Is that the Hall River?
No, this is Myers Fork right here,
okay.
and there's Hall River. And Jane, to your question, so remember Keston Downs, they indicated that they would be up for a trail into the ball fields there. What's the name of that road there, Jane?
Robinson?
That's Robinson, so potentially connecting through to Robinson there, and then utilizing, you know, not necessarily building a trail on there, but just a small connector could gain you a lot in terms of getting up and out. And then it looked like it could go right along the edge of the Doggett Farm, you know, not encroaching if your family was willing to get into the watershed there. And then right here is Lake Brant Road again. So potentially being able to connect all these neighborhoods there.
And you know, there's a state initiative that I don't think is on the maps yet, but the Hall River State Park wants to connect down to the lake. What's the lake? No, at Chapel Hill, Pittsburgh.
Oh,
The big one.
Jordan?
Jordan, thank you. And so there is an initiative to have a linear trail from the state park up here at Brown Summit down to Jordan Lake.
Right.
And that would play right into it. And there is 100 acres on the Hall River that's already in the PLC. He can only develop 5 acres of it.
oh,
And it backs up to us. And,
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so
is that what this is
Is the
right
back
here?
of Austin Mill?
Yeah.
Is that what that is right there? That it looked to me like a tentative. She used a different shading.
It could be.
Oh no, public or private conservation land. So that might be it right there. That square.
And so I would think that there would be no problem. And the Hall River, you know, runs along it, so I think there'd be no problem. Actually, it would be fairly easy, I think, to connect, from Lake Brant. There are not a whole lot of landowners between Lake Brant and 220 on the
Right.
river.
Um,
It's big pieces.
Yeah, so both the Haw River here, and I only went as far as Lake Brent Road just because we get near the end of, near the border of Summerfield, and there aren't any other neighborhoods out there, but certainly, continuing on from there. And of course, I think most of those parcels are private, so again, it relies on, their goodwill. But what I did do, Jane, here was I don't know any of these private landowners in there, but I did know your land right there. I tried to draw it roughly to the edge of your property to the road, and then using the road to come out. But also because continuing down the waterway, I don't think hikers or walkers, whatever, could get under the 220 and I-73 interchange right there. Maybe they could, but...
No, but if your goal is to get them to the park.
Yeah, so it gets them to the park, and then similarly here, it stopped at the trestle instead of going any further there because of the same block. And so presumably at some point, we'll get down through here under the tunnel, I-73, and there looks like there could just barely be an opportunity to ask the school, or there are two long commercial parcels there to try to get a narrow easement from there. It comes out right across from the town park, or the ball fields.
I think the school would be very excited to be able to connect to the
Yeah,
ballpark.
yeah, so then, well, not only the ballpark, but the kids could connect to the greenway right there. And,
But they my kids go to Summerfield Charter, and
oh, they do.
they're having to drive to Burmel to use the trails to do the run club.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of potential there. Yeah, and if we're able to get these connections over to, to all these neighborhoods here, and this is still tentative. We had talked at some point about seeing if there is any right-of-way left alongside I-73 to make that connection, but somehow.
Yeah, I just don't know who to ask.
Yeah, so, these connectors being tentative, but, each of these potentially brings connectors to the shopping center, to the ball fields. Ideally, one thing I did forget to draw was some method of coming from trying to bridge these neighborhoods to the town park. But because of the tunnel at I-73 here, that's effectively connecting Armfield east and west. And due to the watershed right here, potentially connecting Brookhaven. So those are all pretty close connectors that might not require too much trail to get through. And on this side, of course, we're in the watershed. You kind of hit a blockade down here with I-73, there's no tunnel there. I guess I didn't draw it. But it looks like, I thought I drew it on the map, but it looked to me like right around here where that dip is in the Greensboro watershed, that there are a number of landowners in there who might be willing to allow a connector up to, is that Brookbank?
Yeah.
Brookbank. Brookbank, which gives Southern
I think
Oaks.
that's Bunch, actually. Brookbank is the one above.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah. So up to Bunch connects, what is it, Southern Ridge, Southern Oaks, and potentially Abingdon and Trotter Ridge gain connections there. And then the Moores Creek watershed, a lot of these are privately owned large tracts. I don't know they'd be willing to let the trail go through there, but Bunch is pretty lightly traveled, and these parcels are actually Greensboro watershed, Greensboro City lots in there, which I was surprised to see on
So
the
did
GIS.
you, GIS, could you point out exactly where the Greensboro watershed protection is along Morse Creek, Ma'am, please?
Well, the black lines here with the dark green,
Yeah.
That's all Greensboro watershed.
That's for Reedy Fork.
right.
And then
So-
Morse Creek, you have in blue.
Yeah, so those, I can pull up I have the GIS up as well, and we can look at it. But there were several long parcels. Were you, did Greensboro set those aside?
No, people, I think those are the properties that when we first incorporated,
It's
No,
towards,
the town would not
towards
accept,
Cottage.
so they turned it into
Yeah.
Greensboro. That's how they got it.
Well, so it'd be a matter of asking Greensboro.
And they tend to be very cooperative about things like that. I mean,
Right.
that's
So-
the only way you're gonna get to those pieces of property is on a trail.
It looked like it might even a bridge, Jesse, or
Stanley Huff.
Stanley Huff, yeah.
Yeah.
Right there.
I
But
think Sesame
there's
Street
also
there.
this gas line right there. I think it's a gas line. It's that big pipe that goes across Lake Higgins. And it's mowed, all the way across behind Steeple Ridge, across the top of Dogwood Estates, below Trotter Ridge, Southern Oaks. It actually goes right through those neighborhoods. So there's, some of these areas have a pretty good connector. This one, as it goes into Summerbrook, it looks like it goes across private parcels, but just to the left, there's a stub road right there that, you could potentially give the whole neighborhood public access.
Jason, who owns the utilities? I mean, is it utility companies?
We were discussing that a while ago.
I'm sorry.
Didn't it seem like they're still privately owned, but they're utility
Duke
easement?
Power has easements, the property belongs to the landowner.
Yeah.
So the big Duke Power lines, those pieces of property belong to, the gas company the gas people, I think, are the same way. I think-
Easement.
Yeah, I think the people own the property, they just have an easement across it.
Yeah, so that's something that we'd have to figure out, or the town would have to figure out. The reason I put them in there was just because it's one of the policy items in the
I
comp.
think the gas company is very particular about who walks across their easements. I don't think
They
Duke
may
Power
be.
cares. I think Duke Power, you can do anything to that land except build a structure on it. That's
Oh,
my
okay.
understanding.
Well, and they may or may not be ideal trail, some of it might be, like a connection for those guys here, but on the top side, that's going to be, I think, a new development in there, so I actually overlaid the nodes in there too. So you can start to see how, while you might not necessarily put in something real wide all the way down like Brant, although that is very picturesque, ideally you'd be trying to connect to Nantucket and what's the other one there?
Ridgewood?
No, Ridgewood is mostly not in.
No, that's true, that's true.
But there are all those homes there on the
Corbin Woods
north side of
is
it.
there.
Corbin Woods.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So something like that as a connector, certainly if a big development goes in there, asking them to make sure they connect all their stuff, whatever they do, and simultaneously bring in Rialta, is that what that is? Rialta Estates?
Rihanna.
Yeah.
Simultaneously allow them to come in. And let's see, there was another example of that. There were other potentials that I didn't draw in. Remember a couple of years ago, someone from this little neighborhood here, asked us if they would ever have a chance to connect down into the watershed.
Oh,
I didn't
yeah.
draw it in because I couldn't find a parcel or anything really distinct. Let's see, so I did draw in, we had briefly talked about giving Elmhurst has a stub road right there. So there's the watershed trail, which I kind of drew, there's a private conservation land triangle right here. And so I kind of drew from the stub road at the head of what's technically the watershed 100-year floodplain. And then try to get alongside that conservation land to get to, come on, brain, straighter road. But, so this stub road, if you could go right along the edge of that woman's, if she'd be willing, what's the land behind the bank and the,
Tilly.
yeah,
Tilly.
Maxine Tilly.
Well, she won't care, she's dead.
Oh, okay, right, you've said that before the last time I
But her dog might care.
But so the number of homes there that might not have to come out on the 220 just to get down here, it's a drainage, so it might have some topography in there, but getting to the commercial node without having to go out could be valuable.
That sure could.
The way I see this going forward is, knowing where the hubs of the city expansions are, and you can clearly see that the way things are expanding, there's going to be obviously the hub right around here, Town Hall, you've got Hanson Village coming up and neighborhoods coming around it. Similarly on the east side around that area that Jason was talking about. So I think using that as those two areas with satellites, where the ANY is and what else can be coming in, so that everybody can connect with that common goal. Otherwise, if you just throw it out there saying, neighborhoods, let's make sure you connect, I don't think we'll have some sort of a backbone to attach to. This is great that we can see where the densities are going to go up and really push those areas and try to concentrate to expand future rails. I definitely see the Brookbank, Perry Brookbank area, not just because Armfield is right there, but I think generally speaking, Brookbank, the east side of Brookbank, the west side of Brookbank, the north side of Brookbank, going to Hanson Village, the town's city park, that would be
All the density in there, you mean?
The density,
Yeah.
that's because.
And there is another neighborhood in here as well, right?
Right.
It's just,
So there's Burkhaven, but I think right around Burkhaven, so right across from Hanson Forest, west side of Armfield West, I think is not necessarily a organized neighborhood, but I think there's a whole bunch of houses along the road in there.
What kind of concerns me about like how we develop this is if you look at 220, and I honestly have never, I love this map, but if you look at 220, you can see that like the east side of 220 could actually have a trail system that hits the park, hits a commercial area,
you mean the ball fields?
it hits an athletic area, hits Burnhill Park, comes down and drops into that and hits the commercial node over there. Then the west side sort of has the same thing, but I've always been concerned that Summerfield is getting divided by these highways.
Yeah.
And if we can't get good crossover, we're going to develop as two separate units of those.
It's already happening. I agree.
Well, to some extent though, if we don't at least have these micro nodes, and there's really nothing up in here, but these folks on 150 in Scalesville are going to find increasing traffic. If we make Summerfield road focus, if we allow these to be the only things that they can go to, then these corridors, these collectors are gonna get hit hard. And then we make those wider, and then, you know what I mean?
They're repaving these roads and redoing these intersections. There's no stop lights with walk buttons on them.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's,
they
such
did
a
the
bummer.
whole 150 and they didn't put a bike lane in. You know, or I mean, it seems like there's a total disconnect in, you know, it's always kind of like, you know, the horses are out of the gate, you know.
Yeah, the
when
horse is
gate
already out
gets
of the barn.
closed, you know,
Yeah.
whatever, you know, it's.
Well, so, you know, just identifying these, which wasn't hard to do, but assigning requirements or expectations to those, I guess is the next step for them, is to say, you know, maybe not something smaller like straighter alley or, you know, some of these smaller Stanley Huff maybe don't get those, but 150, Scalesville, Pleasant Ridge, some of those majors, maybe they're flagged as when DOT redoes them or county does them that the town requests.
We just really need to maintain a sense of community. Because it's,
Well, I think we should start looking to see what kind of grant money there is to put a trail under to put a tunnel under 220 right up here,
or over.
or over. Well,
You mean up here?
down here at the charter school, or at the end of this, at the end of the property that the town owns. Because I think that's gonna be a major consideration for, keeping, us joined together.
East and west side of 220.
Yeah.
I think right now, obviously, everything is backbone on the ANY tunnel, and the ANY is practically going from the east side of the 220 to bringing everything to the, or connecting something to the west side, but that's it. And, you know,
We can't
because
get
that
across.
one is right, exactly. And other than that one crossing, we don't have anything to say.
And we can't get, I mean, we can't get people across Strawberry Road, which is a little two-lane road, safely. So, I mean, I question 4 lanes of madness out here, if they ever finish it,
Well-
on 220.
It's too bad because right next to, right there's a big dip. And we talked about that. We were probably, what, 5 or 10 years too late to be talking about it because of the way DOT builds out
Yes.
their planning, right? But there's a perfect opportunity for a tunnel right there topographically, and it's so close to all this property here that the town owns, that could be it. And now the new road is right there too, right? The new entrance.
Which would be perfect.
Yeah. But it's odd. I tried to look for a way to connect Elmhurst, you know, either up to here easily. They're kind of isolated, you know, on the north side. I'm sure they love it that way, you know, because it's more solitude up there. But it seemed like the only way to bring this population, to give them easy access, was through this bottom corner. But no easy way to get them across unless there are crosswalks there.
It's the ballpark up there, Jason.
This is the ballpark.
Ballpark's there.
Yeah. And Keston Downs is about 45 homes, including the non-neighborhood homes that pre-existed the development there.
Yeah.
And so all of them can pretty easily access if we set it up, you know, so that it's secure.
And is that a tunnel there, Jason, between the ballpark?
Right here?
Yeah, where that black square is?
Yeah, so this is I-73
Got it.
right there. And that's the tunnel that's on the rail bed.
Does that connect east to west? Or is that That's not connecting any.
Connects Summerfield to Stokesdale.
Got you, okay. So
Well,
it's,
it goes,
This is the old road.
Yeah, if you go over the trestle, the
yeah,
trestle
so the
divides.
trestle's right here.
The trestle divides Summerfield and Stokesdale.
But it does potentially connect to all, if we end up putting in trail, somehow connector to, I was confused, Deboche or Duboc? Duboc is way out, right?
Duboc.
What?
Duboc is Wilson Farms. Duboc
Right.
is there.
It's
Duboc.
commercial.
Okay. So depending on what sort of connector we get through from there, you know, and I don't think we saw direct access to Henson Farms Forest.
Yeah,
Um,
well,
From this side, right, we kind of had to go around, so I put a little connector in through their open access on
Yeah.
the top side that we talked about before.
we,
So-
the town owns the Hall River 100 feet on that side, behind Henson Farms.
Yeah, right, so I tried to draw it right through there, but I just, eyeballed it.
So where,
Trail
so
plans for 10.
You can come back through the back end of my farm.
Could get in that way as well, so we have options
Yeah.
there. But, but to your point, yeah, there's good connectivity, and to Martin's question, whether or not someone allows a connector right there, coming up the rail bed and going under and getting over to here, and potentially having a connection to DeBow right there for the commercial. This Brookbank segment was highlighted in green as part of the trail plan, and so I highlighted it also for kind of like flagging it for widening if they resurface it, that kind of thing. But this big plot is for sale right there, and I was tempted to draw a line through it, but I didn't want to make anyone upset. Just aspirationally, if it was possible.
And where's that big piece of property?
It's the one with the big iron. It's like
Don't like
125 acres, or
The big fence?
yeah, the big wrought iron fence. Did that
Yeah,
sell?
That's Kim Waynick's.
So I don't know.
It's got a wrong number on the
And
sign.
where is it?
It's right down here,
Right on
across the
150.
drawbridge.
Yeah.
looks like old.
It's, and there's actually a back access road. We made them put it in, remember,
In
for the
Farms,
fire, in case of fire at
Yeah.
Henson Farms. Back from that property back into Henson Farms.
And you
The
can
back
come
end of
out that
Snowdale,
little,
that's
that little church road, that little tiny.
Right,
Church Road.
That was it,
Yeah,
that's right.
it connects.
Right,
Yeah,
It connects back to Henson
Right.
Farms.
right, the little church road.
I forgot the name of the church.